Never going back.
I went off the rails. I was like...
Out.
I'm sorry.
What's going on, you guys? In this video, we obviously have to take a look at Bitcoin. Some more recent news was Coinbase hit with an outage as Bitcoin basically dropped $2,000 in like 15 minutes. A lot of people are wondering about Litecoin as well. Why isn't it moving? And why aren't altcoins in general really moving? Why is it only Bitcoin? We're going to talk about that in this video. We're also going to talk about kind of the targets because this thing just literally is going parabolic. For anybody not around from the 2017 bull market, this is really your first taste of what it's like because this is truly kind of common in the space in terms of how Bitcoin makes its gains. It's always in a very short amount of time, very explosive. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. If you're new, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all the good stuff, and we can just jump right into it. As well, guys, if you have not followed me on Twitter and you have a Twitter, feel free to check me out on there. Something I think is interesting, actually, before we get into the main chunk of the video, a lot of people are talking about altcoins. So, for example, funny to see Bitcoin going up and alts not moving and Bitcoin sells off, and then alts also sell off. And other people just talking about which altcoins will outperform Bitcoin during this bull market. So I think that's a very, very good topic, and I actually want to start the video with that topic of altcoins. Do I think altcoins are going to move? Well, based on my experience from the past 2 years, based on just how, the history of Bitcoin and the movement, Bitcoin usually does take the lead like it's doing now, and then money eventually does flow into the alts. It's not uncommon at all to see what we're seeing. I do think we're going to see a lot of gains in the alts. I think I replied to somebody on Twitter yesterday basically just saying, yeah, like I'm really excited for Litecoin and all the gains and all these other altcoins because they were saying, Litecoin's not moving. Why isn't it moving? And basically, I'm not worried at all. I have obviously an interest in Litecoin and, I'm not concerned at all just to see Bitcoin going up and none of the altcoins following. This is just the movement of the market. And as well, I really do like that Bitcoin is just building confidence in general. So, again, it's a game of patience. You've already waited super long, so I can understand why people are getting frustrated that most coins are not moving. It's mainly just Bitcoin. But again, Bitcoin still is the head of the market. It needs to be the first to move, and it is, and it will be, regardless of if we want it to or not. And that money has tended to flow into altcoins. Something I find super interesting here, if we take a look on the market dominance of Bitcoin, you see that historically, up until 2017, with pretty much the biggest bull run in Bitcoin's history, at least in terms of excitement and everything, Bitcoin was above 80%, and has never really even gotten close to that. However, now Bitcoin is all the way up to over 60%, which it has not been so dominant since its peak in 2017 of when it hit 20,000. So a lot of people are expecting alt season to come soon, or they're just expecting a pullback. And then there are also people that are expecting 20, 30, 40, 50K Bitcoin in a very short amount of time. So I kind of just want to jump over to Bitcoin now on the chart. Literally over the past few days, this chart is basically just straight up. It's just parabolic, a straight line up. You wouldn't expect to see that on a chart. You wouldn't expect to see that on a daily chart coming out of a bear market because we really have not seen something like that ever. These are pretty straight up. This was back in 2013 as it led to the peak of the bull market, basically, right around the peak. As you can see, a pullback and then it did peak, and that was the high of that bull market. But you just see this weird curve here. You see the weird curve and then basically just straight up. So I think that has a lot of people scratching their heads. Obviously, nobody knows what happens. Nobody knows what's going to happen. The more videos you watch, the more tweets that you read, the more you research the space, the more you realize that nobody has any idea what is going on. But it is super important to note. Something I was extremely interested to see today is that Bitcoin did have it hit that resistance that we talked about a few days ago and for the past few weeks on the channel. And that was around 13.5, around 13K. Actually, it even went a little above that, about 13.8, even 14K, I think, on some exchanges. So right around 14K. And that's what we've been talking about. That seems like a logical resistance. And in terms of where it should pull back, that seems to make sense. And again, I think that kind of just adds to the credibility almost of the health of the market. Even though it's really hard to get a gauge on sentiment on the price movement right now, it definitely does seem even though we're in the midst of like a $2,000 pullback within the last hour, it definitely does seem like we could have some room to move up or just continue to move up. It's getting bought up quicker and quicker. Now, on the other hand, could we expect a pullback? I mean, I've been saying this for like the past 2 months. I hope we get a pullback. I've wanted one for a very long time. I think it's necessary. I mean, this chart is just literally it's basically as straight up as you could get. And these are not prices I would necessarily want to be buying in, even though I think, 6 months, 2, 3 years from now, I think Bitcoin and altcoins are going to be so much higher than they are now. I would much rather get coins lower, and especially closer to these moving averages, which we haven't seen pullbacks to. Right now, we are currently about 65% extended from the 50-day exponential moving average, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't know if we've seen that in the recent past at all. Really, you really don't see something that drastic. Obviously, it's gonna pull up a little bit because Bitcoin has already gone on such a parabolic move. But I don't know if we're gonna see a pullback to this moving average anytime soon. I think we have 2 days before we get into the weekend. Usually Friday and Saturdays over the past few weeks have been extremely exciting. It's a Wednesday night right about now. So, if excitement continues into the weekend, obviously we could see some more moves there. Again, another thing I want to point out is that this long-term trend that I've been talking about on these videos for a long time, if we want to switch to the weekly, you can kind of get a better picture of it. So you can see this kind of dotted line. I'm moving the mouse along it right now. This dotted line represents kind of what seems to have been historic support for Bitcoin. And what is insanely crazy is that basically today, out of nowhere, and I was kind of joking about this a few weeks ago, saying, I don't think we'll just go straight up and break above it. But that's literally what we did, and we're basically hugging it right now, maybe even looking at it for support. I think we probably still might have some downside to go if we, even if we still are going to continue up over the next few weeks. But you can see right here, if we zoom in, you can see we're right around here, right at that line of the long-term support. And I kind of jokingly a few months ago said, like, would it make sense for Bitcoin to kind of just bounce back above it? Not really thinking it made sense, not really thinking it was possible. I thought it would be a very bullish, very optimistic or hopium video. And that's kind of literally what happened. So it's kind of funny to see that the entire market just literally went straight up. And currently, within a day, broke above that long-term support there, and it's still trying to get above it. So on one hand, you have people saying that we need a necessary pullback to maybe even the 7K range. Some people even saying 6,000 US dollars. While that makes sense to me, and while I could totally see that happening, and while I personally would prefer if that happened, I could totally see us not even doing that, not even ever going below 10K again, and just continuing upwards and really just getting this thing kicked off. And again, that's not just to get you guys super excited, but at this point, it's even more realistic than saying a 7K pullback. It's more realistic than saying we're going back to 7 or 8K, just because what we've been seeing is just so much excitement in the space, whether it's institutional interest or retail interest. This stuff is absolutely bonkers here. So I think honestly, probably going to continue to move up. You don't have to. We're holding at 12.5 right now. Some people are freaking out because we did have a nice pullback, but again, we have to look at the past few weeks, let alone the day that we're still up. Even today at 6%. On over 24 hours, actually 8 or 9% still up. So Coinbase was actually hit with an outage, and I was checking my phone during this time. Bitcoin dropped, and this is, if we can actually pull this out on the 1 hour chart, we can see this very clearly. It actually happened on a smaller time frame than an hour, but just to illustrate it for a quick purpose, you can see this massive candle here basically happened all at once. Actually, you know what? I will pull out a smaller time frame just so you can see. So this is the 15-minute. This was a 15-minute candle. You can see 13,641, so 13,000, so 13.5 thousand, all the way down to 12,000. So a little over $1,500 in less than 15 minutes. So that was pretty wild to see that. Coinbase's API went down. There were major outages. You weren't able to access it. It's a little unsettling because some people are obviously trying to get in or trying to get out of the market, and you don't want to lose access to that when these huge price swings happen. I don't like seeing that. I want to have access to being able to use or trade or do whatever with my cryptocurrency when the prices do things like this. But whether it was just too much activity or too much price action or what it was, I'm not totally sure. But that is something to be aware of. Keep your coins off exchanges. Always have somewhere safe to hold them, because if they're on exchanges, they're not your coins. And then to end the video, just looking at LITECOIN really briefly, we're still trading within this channel. I don't think anything necessarily bad has gone on with LITECOIN. If we go to the LITECOIN Bitcoin pairing, clearly you can see that we are in a continuous downtrend. We haven't really necessarily found any support over the past few weeks, and we're just continuing to go down. Is this all that's left of LITECOIN before the halving coming up in about a month now? Maybe. We could see some more price action. Again, nobody knows what's going to happen. One thing I do know, though, is that people who traded alts into Bitcoin within the last few hours probably got wrecked a little bit, FOMOing into Bitcoin or anything. So number one rule is not to let emotions dictate everything. That's going to be it for this video, guys. If you're new to the channel, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, follow me on Twitter, and I will see you in the next episode.